Bolt fam, tonight the vibe is tension, revenge, and hope all at the same time. We've got a major update on a young target for Herbert, a monster potential addition in the defensive trenches, raw locker room honesty from a linebacker comparing the chaos of the past to the Harbaugh era, and, to close it out, a real early final against a conference rival that already traumatized this franchise in the playoffs. A lot can change in the course of the season after this Sunday in Jacksonville. You won't believe what we've got today, so sit down, smash that like button, and let's dive straight into it right now. And to kick things off, we need to talk about something that gives any fan that sinking feeling in their stomach. When a key piece of the offense starts showing up on the injury report every single day over the last few weeks, one specific name has sparked conversations on social media, debates on radio shows, and a lot of uncertainty about how this offense is going to look in Jacksonville. It's not rumor, it's not hype, it's a fact. This wide receiver status completely changes how the Chargers attack downfield and how defenses prepare to deal with Justin Herbert. After an electric start to the season with touchdowns, vertical bombs, and that feeling of, this is it, he's about to silence the critics, Quentin Johnston suddenly cooled off and, to make things worse, has become a permanent resident on the Week 11 injury report with a shin issue. He's been listed as limited in practice on Wednesday and Thursday, which sets off a real alarm, especially with the list of banged-up players growing by the day right before the bye week when this team should be getting close to a breather on the schedule. On the field, this directly impacts how Herbert distributes the ball. Without knowing if he'll get the fully explosive version of Johnston, the game plan naturally leans even harder on Ladd McConkey and Keenan Allen, two extremely reliable targets who can also end up overloaded if the Jaguars decide to clamp down on them in coverage. The interesting thing is that even though rookie Trey Harris is technically next up on the depth chart, he doesn't exactly project to get a massive volume of targets right away. And that's where the real point lies. This isn't just about stats or fantasy football. It's about honoring the full design of this offense. When Johnston is right, defenses have to pick their poison. When he's limited, the defense exhale, can focus resources on the primary weapons, and makes this attack far more predictable. The big question is whether Harbaugh and his staff can create enough wrinkles to keep the lightning bolt flashing even with this cloud of uncertainty hanging over the unit. For the fan base, all of this turns into a full-on emotional roller coaster. On one side, there's the fresh memory of that season opener that lit up everyone's imagination. On the other, the cold reality of a player still trying to firmly establish himself, fighting off the bust label, and now fighting his own body. Every new injury update becomes fuel for theories, doubt, and hope. And in the middle of all this chaos, nobody wants to see this offense lose its most unpredictable threat right when the season is entering its decisive stretch. If that situation on offense already has the Bolt fam's heart racing, just wait until you see what might happen in the defensive trenches, because while we all love talking passes, routes, and air yards, it's in the middle of the line where January games are really decided, and that's exactly where a specific name who just hit the open market starts to gain traction behind the scenes as a possible Jim Harbaugh target. A veteran defensive lineman, two-time Super Bowl champion who knows the playoff path and is officially available after a frustrating stint in Jacksonville. Kalen Saunders, who arrived in Jacksonville with the mission of solidifying the middle of that defense, is being released after playing very few snaps. It's a strange situation. The raw talent and track record of big game moments are still there, but the fit simply never materialized for the Jaguars. That doesn't mean he can't be extremely useful somewhere else, and that's where the Chargers come into the discussion. Harbaugh has repeated since day one that playoff games are won in the trenches. If you look closely at this roster, the offense got reinforcements, the secondary has been adjusted, but there's still a need for that trustworthy depth on the interior to properly rotate the front in physical, grinded-out games. Now imagine adding to this group a guy who has seen it all in January, who knows what it's like to face heavy offenses, and who has exactly the kind of frame and power Harbaugh loves to see, clogging the middle. We're not talking about a superstar, we're talking about a complementary piece with a trench warrior profile. The kind of player who might not pop on the stat sheet but gets his hands dirty on early downs, eats up double teams, opens lanes for linebackers to fly through gaps, and quietly ruins a guard's night. For a Chargers team still trying to fully cement a physical identity up front, that's the type of addition that can change the tone in the locker room. And the most intriguing part of this possible move is the cost-benefit angle. A veteran arriving hungry to prove he still belongs in the league, used to a contender's environment, might be exactly the push this defense needs to turn occasional strong outings into consistent week-in, week-out dominance. The only real question is whether the front office will move quickly to pounce on this market opportunity, or if they'll sit back and let another AFC rival bring this two-time champion in to supercharge their own front seven. While we're talking about reinforcements and roster moves, there's a topic that hits right at the heart of the Bolt fam: the massive cultural shift Jim Harbaugh brought to Los Angeles, and few stories make that clearer than the recent comments from Dion Henley. The linebacker didn't drop names or point fingers directly, but anyone who follows the Chargers knows exactly who and what era he was referencing. And the weight of that honesty shows just how refreshed, loose, and above all, well-coached this locker room feels right now. Henley said he wishes he had this coaching staff when he was a rookie. That's not just a random line or some vague message between the lines, it's a confession. Because when a player looks back and remembers how hard it was to adjust, how little individual development he felt, and even small details, like the previous head coach forgetting his birthday, it's obvious something was fundamentally off. And all of that resurfaces now, in the exact week the Chargers go back to Jacksonville, the site of one of the biggest wounds in recent franchise history. That 27-point playoff collapse against the Jaguars in 2023 became a collective scar. Fans, players, staff, nobody walked out of that night the same. For a lot of people, including Henley, that was the moment it became crystal clear the team needed a hard reset. The problem is that it only came a year later, after another embarrassing blowout loss to the Raiders. The 2023 season was basically a write-off, a disorganized defense, an offense with no identity, Herbert battling injury, and a roster just trying to survive the chaos. But here's the most interesting, and honestly the most emotional, twist to this whole story. In the end, all that pain opened the door for this moment. Without that implosion, the Chargers probably don't end up with the draft capital that allowed them to bring in Ladd McConkey and Joe Alt. Without that wasted year, Harbaugh might still be at the college level, waiting for another shot. Without that collapse, the cultural revolution we're watching unfold right now simply doesn't happen. That's why Henley's words hit so hard with the fan base. He's saying out loud what every fan felt but couldn't say in that locker room, that they finally have a staff that puts players in the best position to win, that there is finally discipline, identity, purpose, that this franchise finally feels like it's on the right track, something that felt almost impossible not that long ago. And if all of that already made things feel intense, buckle up, because the next chapter is absolutely decisive. There's no overreaction here, no manufactured drama. Sunday's showdown with the Jacksonville Jaguars is, according to league analytics, the single most important game of the entire NFL season so far in terms of direct playoff impact. It's not just another week, it's not just a conference game, it's a fork in the road for the Chargers, a result that can either put Los Angeles firmly in control of its future or drag the franchise right back into the chaos of a crowded wildcard fight. The numbers are cold, but the emotional weight is massive. If the Jaguars win, their playoff odds jump to 57%. If they lose, those odds crash down to 19%. That's already a huge swing, but here's the real punch. For the Chargers, a win pushes their playoff chances to 91%. A loss drags that number down to just 58%. It's practically a door swinging wide open on one side and slamming shut on the other. A ridiculously thin margin between a dream scenario and a long, painful grind. When you put that alongside everything this roster went through in 2023, injuries, instability, inexplicable losses, and that constant sense that every week was an emotional roller coaster, the importance of this matchup only grows, because this time it's not just about math, it's about proving that the rebuild isn't just a catchphrase, it's real. That Harbaugh ball isn't some distant idea, it's an actual identity that this team has finally become capable of turning adversity into fuel instead of excuses. Denver is just one game ahead in the division. The AFC West is still there to be taken. The toughest stretch of the schedule is still looming. Right now, at this precise point in the season, is when the Chargers need to build real momentum. Against a Jaguars team that's talented but wildly inconsistent, Los Angeles has the perfect chance to impose tempo, authority, and stability before things get even tougher. And there's a psychological layer to all of this too. Going back to Jacksonville brings back bitter memories. It brings back that stubborn ghost of the historic playoff collapse. But it also brings a chance to exorcise that ghost once and for all. To turn a symbol of pain into a symbol of turning the page, to walk into the same stadium and say, that team is gone, this is a different one. After everything we've talked about today, uncertainty on offense, a massive opportunity in the trenches, raw behind-the-scenes honesty, and a matchup that could define the entire season, it's crystal clear the Chargers are standing in one of those moments that separate ordinary teams from those destined for something bigger. The road here has been full of turbulence, but what truly matters now is the real chance to turn narrative into results. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you believe this is the true turning point game? Drop your take in the comments, help boost the Bolt fam, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's keep riding together all season long.